Hi guys, welcome back to Seduce Me. Yeah. So this person named Diana, which is a succubus, appeared last episode, and I probably should have kept my mouth shut, but I didn't, so I better start learning some magic, or else my friends and family are dead.
She's just some whacked up hussy who doesn't know how to close her legs. She's not a real threat.
Oh, really?
Oh,
I feel
crap.
insulted.
The boys and I looked around the room, wondering where the voice came from. I felt cold sweat run down the back of my neck in fear, remembering what kind of power she had. At last, we saw Diana by the entrance of the kitchen, juggling a single red apple in her hand as she leaned against the archway. The boys quickly surrounded me, glaring at the intruder.
So, you took up a human name as well.
Beautiful name, isn't it? Well, for a human name, anyway.
What the hell do you want?
To bring you back, of course. However, you weren't supposed to know that I was coming. I completely forgot about that little mind-reading ability. My mistake.
Diana pushed off from the archway and walked towards us, making the boys step closer to me in a protective circle. Diana laughed.
My. What has the world come to? A group of demons protecting a human girl? I'll tell you right now, she's not that pretty. And from what I can tell, she's still a virgin.
My face grew red in complete anger and embarrassment. How dare she! I'm not gonna say anything. Diana chuckled and smirked at me, knowing that I wanted to hit her, but had control of myself.
Such control you have, human. You know your place very well.
I didn't control a growl that escaped my throat, however.
Well, will you all change your minds? I assure you, it's for the greater good.
I expected the boys to say no. What I had heard was complete silence. None of the boys replied to Diana, which made me both nervous and fearful as to why. Diana leaned her head back a bit, surprised for a different reason.
No. Well, I see.
Was silence truly them saying no to her? I looked around at the boys and saw the disobedience in their eyes, giving me my answer. I felt my heart flutter, especially when my eyes landed on Damien. He kept close to me, glaring daggers into Diana. I could feel that he was completely adamant in his choices to stay. I don't know what, but I was incredibly happy to know he wanted to stay. Diana sighed and pressed a finger into her temple, rubbing it gently.
Either all of you are playing a very convincing hard-to-get game, or you all must be out of your minds.
Diana then looked at me, locking her gaze with mine as if to read me. I could tell she wanted me to do something, but the boys would stop her, so the stare was her only available action. After a small moment of silence, Diana licked her lips before breaking the gaze battle and smiling at the boys around me.
Very well. I guess I'll take my leave now.
What? Her leave? Was she serious? The boys around me straightened up and grew confused looks in their faces as Diana stepped back and away from us with a small bow, flaunting her cleavage. Without another word, a deep purple pentagram appeared under her feet, and Diana's body slowly sank into the floor. As her head vanished into the floor, the pentagram vanished. At once, the boys relaxed and slowly began to return to their spots at the table, each in deep thought.
She'll be back, but she won't kill us. She needs us alive.
Whatever. We'll just keep saying no. She can't force us to come back.
If I say I want them to go, you're gonna do something.
She can't do anything but annoy us. Eventually she'll give up.
That's the hope, anyway.
Hopefully. Damien walked over to me and stood before me, looking at me with concern.
We'll protect you. Don't worry.
I nodded, feeling that he was telling the truth, or at least a hopeful and comforting thought. Damien gently took my hand in his and brought it up to kiss my knuckles, however making me blush and forget what I was thinking about. The sound of collective chuckles and playful snickers whispered through the air, making me blush even more. But as Damien sighed and cleared his throat, the laughter stopped. I looked up to see he was glaring at his brothers with his lips on my hand. He and I pulled away from each other as the sound of Naomi's car appeared. I quickly ate my food and said bye to the boys and left, confident that nothing was going to happen. Never ever say nothing will happen before the day is over. I avoided talking about the ride back home yesterday, saying that the ride was a one-time thing. I'll be riding with you guys from now on, to and from school. The girls seemed very happy as we entered the school, quickly gathered our things from our locker and headed to class. There were no events, to our surprise. History wasn't exactly fun, but our teacher was great. At least he would have been great if he was in class that day. Diana. Naomi and Susie took their seats around me, Susie in front of me and Naomi beside me before the class bell rang and the class was greeted by the dean.
Students, you'll be having a substitute for class today. Everyone meet
Miss Diana.
Frickin' A! My heart stopped at the door with the dean. My heart stopped at the door with the dean was Diana, looking over the students and smirking at her as her eyes landed on me. She strutted to the teacher's desk, ignoring or welcoming the whispers from the other students before sitting on the wood and crossing her legs.
Thank you, Dean. You can go now.
With a wave of Diana's hand, the dean left the classroom, closed the door, and left the area. Diana smiled at us, making my stomach turn. What was she going to do?
So, history. History. Such a silly thing, isn't it? I mean, what do we care about the past? We're in the present.
The rest of the class, including Naomi and Suzu, hesitantly nodded in agreement, unsure about this new teacher, but willing to listen to more what she had to say.
The present is so full of wonderful things. While the labors of the past are the reason we have many things, it is our chance and privilege to utilize what has been given to us.
Her charms were almost infectious. The class was practically starting to eat out of her hand. I looked around to see a classmate grinning and agreeing with Diana. I pressed my lips together as I listened further. I had no choice.
What's even funnier about human beings is that some of the bits of history we hear as either made up or completely biased to one side. It's like a story you read as a child. You hear of the princess and the prince, and they live happily ever after. But what about the family she left behind? What of her friends?
The students listened and agreed intently to her words. I could tell, however, that these words were all targeted at me.
The original story of The Little Mermaid, a perfect example of biased opinion. Here we have a girl who thinks she can be with this prince, but this prince has to marry a princess. What would happen if the mermaid had her way? What makes the mermaid so important that the princess has to suffer the consequences?
I'm gonna fight. The rest of the class turned their heads to me. Naomi and Susie looked at me with equally surprised looks. I kept my eyes to Diana. If I was the mermaid, I wasn't going to let the princess take my prince away. Diana stared at me before smiling and turning her body to fully face me.
Oh? And why does it not matter?
The story isn't about the princess. The story is about the mermaid and the prince.
But that is exactly my point. While the story talks about the mermaid and the prince's romance, we don't see the problems of the kingdom the prince rules. While we are all fixated with this love story, we ignore the fact the kingdom would fall apart without the marriage between the prince and princess.
She kept her eyes to me as she spoke. I knew she wanted to make her words stick in my mind, but I didn't listen. It was one thing to be a fictional story. It's another to try and ruin someone's life for selfishness. Diana chuckled and looked back at the class.
Well, luckily in the real story of The Little Mermaid, the mermaid knows that what she was doing was wrong, and she threw herself into the ocean, turning into sea foam.
Some of the students that surrounded me mumbled in surprise, obviously not knowing the real story. However, Diana was wrong once again. Once again, the clouds looked at me and Diana faced me with another smile.
Not true. How so?
The trade-off for becoming human was marrying the prince or turning into sea foam. However, she was also given the choice to kill the prince and turn back into a mermaid. The mermaid didn't because she loved him, and she sacrificed herself for that love. That is a story worth telling. Not some princess getting her way, but of a tragedy that had befallen on a girl who only wanted love. Class applauded me, and Suzu giving me her usual punch to my shoulder, and Naomi smiling at my logic. Diana, however, finally grew into an almost angered face at me.
Interesting. So what you are saying is that the princess should be given no mind.
The story is not about the princess. The story is about the mermaid, and the mermaid should have gotten her prince.
Even at the risk of a kingdom falling apart?
Even if the entire world fell apart around them, duty does not overrule love, and the princess needs to realize this. The applause that followed that intensified with whoops and hollers. I felt a wave of confidence roll through my body. Diana wasn't going to win. I wasn't going to let her. Diana then stopped talking and looked to the clock on the wall, reading it quickly. This class had barely begun. Why was she looking at the time? Diana then leaned against the blackboard and smiled to us. I became worried.
You know what? School isn't important. Everyone, go ahead and head home. Take the week off.
The students suddenly began to chat happily or in confusion of the situation. Many thought it was a dream come true. Others knew better. Before anyone could protest, however, Diana pressed a finger to her lips and counted down with her fingers in the air. 3, 2, 1. The speakers of the classroom gently awoke, giving us an announcement you would never believe.
Attention students! Due to an emergency faculty meeting, we will be closing school for the remainder of the day and this entire week. Please leave the school quickly and quietly and have a good rest of the week.
She used her powers on them. Damn it, I feel the need to stop her, but how? How could I stop a demon in the middle of a public area? Diana smiled before gesturing to the door.
Have a nice week off.
Ah, no! Many of the students filed out, chatting to each other about their new impromptu plans. Suzu was beyond happy, but Naomi was hesitant. Before we could pack up and leave to Howard, Diana stepped to us.
Excuse me, little miss. I'd like you to stay a little while. There's something we need to discuss.
As Diana looked to Suzu and Naomi, she snapped her fingers, making my friends tense up.
You two can head home. Don't worry about your friend until next week, okay? If you contact her, she won't reply, so don't bother. If she contacts you, ignore her, because she's just fine.
Oh my god. No! As if on command, Suzu and Naomi left the room. I tried to march after them, but Diana stepped in my pathway, warning me with her eyes that if I followed, there would be hell to pay. I had lost my 2 friends at least for the week, as she wanted. Diana and I were alone. I slammed my hands on the desk in front of me and glared at Diana. What are you doing? What are you thinking?
What? Do I not make a good teacher? I figured you should have a little lesson, so I took matters into my own hands.
Whatever you're trying to do won't work.
You really think so, dear? And what makes you so sure about that?
What was making me so sure? Why was I confident? Were the boys worth this? My thoughts began to fill with doubt. All the uncertainties about this whole ordeal began to cloud my mind. No, she's trying to control you. Do something. Ow. Ow. I can't talk today. If the boys were ever found out, there'd be hell to pay. Was it worth it? What about Diana? What would she do to me? Would she make my parents forget about me completely? Would she ruin my friends' lives out of spite? In my gut, I felt a stone of confidence try to fight back, but the heaviness of my thoughts began to dissolve that stone little by little. What was going on with me? I looked up to Diana once again to see her gaze boring into my eyes. She was using her powers on me. This time, I was away from home, so I couldn't escape. Or could I? Did I want to? The way she stared at me made me feel warmth and fuzzy inside my chest. I felt like melting. Diana lifted a hand under my chin and ran her thumb over my lips, licking her own. I could feel little shots of energy zapping from under my skin into my chin where she had held me.
Now, let's have a little taste of that sweet, virginal sexual energy.
No. I watched as she leaned in, ready to kiss me and take my energy. Half of my body felt elated at the idea. The other half completely rejected it and didn't want her to even touch me. Damien. Suddenly, Diana stopped in her tracks.
Damien? Who is...
It then dawned on her.
Ah, one of the boys. Why don't you tell me which boy is Damien?
No! I felt myself not in compliance. The youngest. Diana giggled in reply before letting go of my face and stepping back.
Really? The bastard's son with you?
I nodded once again, but this time partly in my own decision to reply. Diana let out a sound that mirrored a cat's purr before stepping back away from me.
All right then. Well, if it's the youngest son you're infatuated with...
Diana chuckled before kissing my nose, where I felt a shot of energy zap out of my body, almost making me dizzy and recoil. Diana then turned to the desk and sat on the wood, crossing her legs.
You can go now. Remember, no class for the rest of the week.
And how am I supposed to get home? My two friends left me here thanks to you.
Oh, were they your ride? My apologies. Let me help then.
Diana then lifted her hand and snapped her fingers. I suddenly felt the floor sink from underneath me, forcing me to look down. A purple pentagram surrounded my feet, pulling me into the ground. Whoa! Before I could fight, however, I sank fully into the floor, fading into darkness and shutting my eyes. As I opened them, I felt my silk sheets around me, soothing my anxiety from the darkness that had previously surrounded me. What the... Why did Diana bring me home? Was this an illusion? Was I being tricked? Something was going on. I sat up in bed, looking around me. I was indeed in my room. There was no mistake about that. Why? Diana is too strange. Was this a game? Was this part of her plan to get the boys back? I was lost and confused more than ever, despite my logical thought, trying to piece the puzzle that is Diana together. The more I tried to solve her, the less I understood about the situation I was in. I was interrupted, however, by my door suddenly opening, revealing the boys with Damien's hand on the doorknob.
Miss, what are you doing here?
Aren't you supposed to be in school?
I furrowed my eyebrows and stared at Damien, asking him to answer their questions through my thoughts.
Diana sent her back here. She invaded her school and sent all the students back home.
What is that bitch up to? Seriously! Diana's playing around for no reason.
Maybe it's part of her plan.
The boys continued to argue back and forth about Diana, feeling an almost jealous curiosity in me. Damien seemed to be deep within the talking, to not notice my thoughts, for he didn't even stop talking alongside his brothers. Why was Diana after them? Why did she want to bring them back? What was important about the boys that she would travel to the human world to get them? What was going on? I decided enough was enough. I needed answers. Hey! The boys stopped arguing, staring at me in surprise. I held my hands and fists in my lap, mustering courage to continue to speak, despite my abrupt shout. Why is Diana here? Why does she want to bring you all back? What exactly did you all run from? Why did you run from it?
Miss,
Don't miss me, please! I need to know what's going on. I won't be left in the dark about this. I want to know what I'm facing. The boys looked at each other hesitantly, unsure of what to reply. Finally, Sam pushed Damien towards the bed, making him buckle and land on his knees with his torso over the edge of the mattress.
Damien, do the thing.
The thing? What thing?
Sam, you're not suggesting.
Why not? She deserves to know everything, especially if Diana is targeting her.
Sam's right.
I guess we have no choice then.
I was getting confused. What was Damien about to do? Damien stood before climbing onto the bed with me, sitting across from me on his knees.
We are going to show you everything. You have to trust me, okay? The minute you stop trusting me, the vision will stop.
Oh. Vision?
Just trust me.
I looked to Damien, unsure of what was going on, but I nodded. If this was the only way to learn, then this was my chance to know. Damien gently placed his hands on each side of my head, gently pressing his thumbs into the skin above my eyebrows. I could only stare at Damien as his eyes began to glow gold and energy began to be both pulled out of me and forced into my head. Within seconds, my vision went black once again. I was unsure of what Damien was doing, but soon shapes and textures slowly began to appear around me. I found myself sitting on a stone floor in the middle of what looked like a fantasy throne room. Where am I? I looked down at myself to stand only to see my body as translucent as a ghost. Whoa! I jumped up and inspected my hands in a sudden panic. I was see-through! Why? What was going on?
How dare they try to negotiate with me? Do they not know whom they speak to?
I gasped and ran behind a nearby pillar away from the voice. The sound of his anger and words frightened every bone in my body, turning me into a frightened child.
My lord, please calm yourself.
Calm? They're merely testing my resolve. I have more than half of a mind to send my greatest armies to take what should be mine. They are mere insects in the way of my kingdom's expansion.
They merely asked for a marriage joining.
So I'm to bow to them and share my land that I have so rightfully conquered?
I peeked from behind the pillar to see a large demon covered in royal clothes, but buff enough to be a military commander. His rage practically emanated from his body as he growled at his servant.
They are willing to give their land to you, sire. All they ask is for one of your sons to marry their daughter, whom I might add is as beautiful as can be.
This is ridiculous! To suggest that I need their approval to take their land is beyond insanity. What makes them think I care about their precious daughter?
Did I mention that she is a prodigy of her kind, sire?
A prodigy?
Yes, my lord. This succubus is a master of her skills in magic and mind manipulation. She is said to sway armies with a snap of her fingers, despite being as young as she is.
Impossible!
If only it were, sire. This succubus is dangerous, but would be a great asset to have should we agree to this arrangement. The only reason she cannot face you, my lord, is because you are the strongest demon in the plains.
Is this supposed to change my mind?
Yes, my lord.
You are doing a terrible job at convincing me.
My apologies, sire.
I was lost. I could tell that they were talking about Diana, but why?
Father.
I quickly turned my head to see another demon who looked like a mere child, staring at the throne of the demon commander. Father?
Raestro, have you finished your training?
Who could Raestro be? Matthew?
Yes, Father.
Then what do you want?
I want to be with my brothers the best of the day, Father.
The demon commander walked to the young demon and gripped his hair, picking him up off the ground and forcing him to look up at his snarl. The young demon, however, looked unfazed.
Arrogance! Why should I allow you to be with them? I should kill you for your lack of respect to me.
Because I want to be with them, Father.
James? I could only stare at the young demon face his father, despite the massive difference between them. This young demon seemed weaker and easy to kill versus the demon commander. Why would this man kill his son, though? Was this commander that ruthless? However, I wasn't expecting him to laugh and release the young demon.
Good! Assertive even in the face of danger. That is why you are my favorite son.
Sam? Eric? I could only stare wide-eyed at the commander, placed his hand on the demon's shoulder.
Very well. Go. Tomorrow, you will show me your training.
Sam. The little demon grinned widely before running off.
I have a thought.
Yes, my lord?
How old is this daughter?
As old as your 5th, sire.
Does that mean... Damien?
Do you believe this proposal is worth it?
Yes, sire.
Tell those insects that they are safe for now. I will consider their offer.
Sire, are you certain?
Did I stutter? Now go!
The demon servant quickly ran off, but as soon as he passed the pillar I was hiding behind, he along with the commander vanished into thin air. What the... I think I'll stop there for today. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!